Hi once again, and welcome to this series of videos where I answer your questions. So I asked for questions from the people who had originally signed up for this free course back in February, and I got overwhelmed with responses, but many of them were kind of the same, and I wanted to address a few of them today that came in around the idea of time and making time for our art. So KM, I don't have a full name, thinking I have to spend hours at a time on painting when I often don't have or make that time. Then Declan from Ireland said his biggest issue is motivating himself to make art after he comes home from work. I have a young family and a busy house. It's hard to find the time, and when I do get the time, I find it difficult to just drop into art making. I'm sure many of you can sympathise or empathise with that. Wendy said the biggest barrier is time, not just because of things like work, but also mentally making and prioritising time for myself and my time to create. Melissa said, I always feel there's something more important that I need to do. I struggle with priorities. How do I make the space for art? And so Melissa, Wendy, Declan, KM, thank you for your questions, which I know will resonate with lots of other people. And I think there's two separate issues here. One is some people are feeling art's not as important as other things, or they're struggling to make it important. And some people are genuinely crushed for time and are feeling like they just don't have the amount of time needed to do something meaningful with their art. So I want to address them both separately. First, thinking it's not important. This is really a stumbling block that we need to get over. Often it's because we haven't put our own needs first at many points in our life. And so we think that what we need is not as important as what our kids need, even when they're grown up and long left the nest. We think it's not important as what our spouse needs. We think it's not as important as our job or what our clients need if we work for ourselves. We can basically push ourselves to the bottom of any priority list. But you know and I know that you're not at your best when you only do things for other people, when there's nothing for you. That just makes you angry, it makes you resentful, it makes you sad. So making your art is important just because it makes you feel better. And when it makes you feel better, that means there's more of you to give to the people that you care about. So when you're not sad or angry or resentful, you've got a lot more to give. But more than that, I think making our art is genuinely really important. I think making our art helps us get closer to ourselves. It helps us understand ourselves better. And the more humans who understand themselves better, the better the planet will be as a place to live. And more than that, art has a crucial place in our lives. What do we do when we're heartbroken? We go look for sad music to listen to or sad film to watch. What do we do when we're happy? We might put on some happy music. We might watch a film that's really celebratory because we feel celebratory. When we read novels or listen to music or read poems or look at paintings that express something of how we feel less alone in the world. And especially over the last few years as this pandemic has raged on, we've all come to see the importance of art in our lives. We've all experienced not being able to go to concerts and not being able to go to plays, and how important things like Netflix have become, not just as passive entertainment, but as a way of us seeing ourselves reflected back. And that's what art does. So it's really important for you on a personal level, and it's really important for us on a larger scale that you express yourself. So I think it's a real shift for many of us, and it takes time and practice. I know when I first became a full-time artist, I still felt guilt when I went to paint. I was all right if I was marketing, or if I was recording the podcast, or if I was doing a video like this, or if I was doing something for YouTube or Facebook. If I was helping other people, then it felt like work. If I was painting, then it felt like a guilty pleasure. And I had to slowly work my way through that. It took some time to get used to, no, this is my job. And so working through it just meant being with the uncomfortable feelings and doing the thing anyway. And eventually the uncomfortable feelings went away. So that's my answer to thinking it's not important. If that's you, I want you to go back and watch that again and listen again, because it's really, really important that you get this. But what about if you're like Declan and you just have a lot of stuff on? Maybe you have a young family and a job as he does. Maybe you don't have the young family, but you have a very demanding job. Maybe you have caring responsibilities. You don't have hours to spend in your studio. And the good news is you don't need it. I know for me personally, one of the big discoveries I've made over the years of making my own art is that I'm best when I have a very small amount of time. I'm best if I have half an hour to an hour to work. When I have a whole day to be in my studio, that's when I will paint all day, have a really good time, but look at the work when I'm finished and think, well, I either made everything worse or I didn't make any progress. But the short snippets, half an hour, that's when I finish a painting. That's when I do something that excites me for next time. So for me personally, I've learned that I'm actually better with a small amount of time. And that might or might not be you, because we're all different. But what is definitely true is you can do a lot in half an hour. And we just have this idea that we need a good, dedicated, quiet amount of time or we can't do it. That's just not true. When this is different from painting, but when I wrote a book last year, and when I wrote that book, I wrote it in half-hour chunks. I got up half an hour earlier, and before I even went in, had a shower or anything, I wrote for half an hour. I had to do that because I had a really tight deadline, and it worked. I got the book done. I just broke out how many words I had to write. I realized it would take half an hour a day, so I did half an hour a day. It was hard to get out of bed some mornings, but I got a lot done in that half an hour, and the same applies to painting. So the first thing I would say to Declan and to anyone else with a lot of responsibilities is to realize that you don't need great big yawning chunks of time. If possible, you could do with a space set up that you don't have to put everything away again, because that takes up time. And I know that's not possible for everyone, but a corner of the garage, maybe the dining room gets taken over, maybe a spare bedroom, maybe half a spare bedroom. If there's a place you can go where you can keep your stuff out, that makes it easier. Knowing that you're only going to have half an hour a day, that makes it easier because you've not got expectations of any big thing. And knowing that inspiration finds you working rather than the other way around really helps. So Declan, you said I find it difficult to drop into art making. Maybe you do need some kind of transition thing. Maybe you have a cup of tea, or maybe you light a candle. I don't know what's your bag, but whatever you want to do that moves you into that space, that's fine. But maybe the reason you find it hard to drop into it is just because you've got big expectations for yourself in that small amount of time. Maybe just taking those expectations away can help. Personally, what I used to do, I used to finish work, then make dinner, then tidy up after dinner. And generally that wasn't all done till about 9. But then instead of putting the telly on, I used to go to my workspace and start painting. And I do that till 11 or midnight. I don't really have the energy for that now that I paint all day because I find painting tiring. But when I did it, that was really good because that was my time and I knew it was coming and it was something to look forward to. I know that might not be possible with kids, but something's possible for you, Declan. There is an amount of time somewhere in the week or somewhere in your day that you can carve out. And it's really just about taking those big expectations about the time that you need, because it's amazing what you can do in half an hour. Even if you just put a few brush strokes on, you will feel better for having done it. So please drop the idea, everybody, that this is something that has to take hours and hours of your day. You may one day, if you want to, be painting full time, and then you can find out for yourself whether that suits you or not to work all day in the studio. But you may never do that, and that's fine too. For now, you have other responsibilities, and what's important is to think about where you are going to make the time in all that for you. Because you will have more time for the people you care about and more energy for the people you care about if you put a little bit of time aside for yourself and for your art making. I hope that helps, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye.